just a hack. He's just an absolute hack. And he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just, it's terrible. It's just terrible.
Welcome to the Believe in NFL Draft Prospect podcast. This is an interview edition inviting you into the backgrounds of some of the top prospects in all of college football for the next season's NFL draft. We are in the 2023 cycle. Potentially, we have a young man here that could be a part of the next couple cycles, depending on what he decides to do. But I got Mr. Joe Tippmann, who is a star offensive lineman out of the University of Wisconsin, the starting center there this past year. I thought he had one of the better tapes I've watched of any center, maybe the best tape, honestly. It's a great center class potentially next year with guys like Ricky Stromberg, Jared Patterson from Notre Dame, but I think Joe is amongst the best in college football. So, Joe, I appreciate you again, man, taking a little bit of time. We were talking before we started. I know it gets really hectic, kind of working up to the summer part of the preparation, but appreciate you for taking a little bit of time today, man.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So, Joe, I kind of like to run these a little bit like a journey. So I wanted to go back. I took a look at some of your recruiting stuff. I know you were a Fort Wayne, Indiana kid originally. So can you just talk me through a little bit of the recruiting process for you and why ultimately you ended up with Wisconsin?
Yeah, so my recruiting process kind of started, I'd say, at a normal time for most guys like me. I was, I think, a sophomore going into my junior season, and I got an offer. First offer was Ball State. And then after that, it kind of all started trickling down. But the first school to actually come and see me and, actually come to my school was actually Wisconsin. And I was able, Coach Bostad, who is actually now the current O-line coach, he was an inside linebackers coach at the time. He's the recruiter for the area, so I got to, see all that stuff. He told me to come up for a camp, which I ended up doing. And I had a successful camp, and I had a great time, learned a lot. And then after that, I kind of just always had Wisconsin in the back of my head after that. And I kind of found myself every visit I went on, I was comparing all my visits and like, oh yeah, this place has this, but it's not Wisconsin, I just kind of kept finding myself saying that. So then I realized that, yeah, I want to go to Wisconsin.
I love that, man. I love that. And obviously, Joe, I know, you're not too far from Wisconsin, being an Indiana guy. So can you talk to me just a little bit about, because the Wisconsin just lineage of offensive line plays. I don't even have to name the guys like Joe Thomas and Ryan Ramczyk and Travis Frederick and Logan Bruss, who just got drafted, that you obviously know very well. Josh Seltzner, who we had down at the College Gridiron Showcase, obviously a great tradition at offensive line. But how much did that mean to you, a part of the equation to hopefully continue that great tradition that you guys have going down?
That definitely played a factor. Not only are they developing these guys to be great offensive linemen, but I just wanted to be able to be a part of that, awesome, hard-nosed offensive line tradition. And I know this is the best place to help me get to the NFL, which is my end goal. So I think that played a big factor in it. And I think at the time they had I think Wisconsin was top 5 for the amount of O-linemen drafted in 20 years or something. So,
wow.
I knew that going to Wisconsin was going to be my best chance for, getting to my furthest potential that I can go.
Yeah, no, Wisconsin is arguably the best as far as developing offensive linemen. So I think you made a great choice, obviously, there. And let me ask you, Joe, when you were in high school, what position did you play in? And take me through, was it always, I was going to be a center long-term? Did you start at guard, at tackle? What has kind of been your journey from a positional perspective?
So in high school, I was a left tackle, which pretty much almost all offensive linemen that go into college, even if you're in kind of a smaller guy, 6 foot or 6 foot, 6'2", 6'3", you're still going to most likely be playing left tackle in high school. So coming in, I knew I wasn't really going to be sticking out there at tackle. Coach Rudolph at the time said he really liked me interiorly at guard. But during my redshirt season, when I was on the scout offense, Coach Bostad, he ran the scout offense. He always wanted me getting in there at center and playing center. And so for that whole season, I was playing center for the scout offense, and then I went back to guard after that, and then going into the next fall camp, which would have been my second year, the Coach Rudolph at the time, he had me play 2 days at each position. So 2 days at tackle, 2 days at guard, 2 days at center, 2 days at guard, 2 days at tackle. And I think that really kind of just like helped my development. But then eventually that whole season was kind of cut short for me. I going into the season, I knew I'd be battling a shoulder injury. So I was just trying to kind of get through that. And then I think it was the Michigan game. I got in that game at right guard, played, I think, 11 snaps. And then after that, the following game, the Northwestern game, I was decided. I was just injured, playing from behind all the time. So I was like, yeah, it's time to get my surgery, which was phenomenal for me. But then after coming back from my surgery, Coach Rudolph was like, hey, I want you to learn center and I want you to fight for that spot. So after not doing a spring ball, going into a fall camp for my third year, I was able to take the spot and kind of stick there going through the whole season. So I jumped around quite a bit, but, finally settled in down at the center spot.
Before we continue on with this discussion, folks, I do want to tell you about Bet Online, today's sponsors. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. Don't forget that the MLB is back. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering needs, including live betting in your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so head to their website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.
And let me ask you this, Joe, because I know centers are typically a little bit shorter, right? Like usually you're talking 6'3", 6'4", maybe even 6'2"-ish type of body types. You're obviously a taller guy, listed right around 6'6". I know we've seen some centers a little taller, like an Alex Mack, who's about 6'5" in that vein. But was it a difficult transition, or do you feel like it kind of came naturally to play a position that typically your body type's not usually at?
Yeah, I think at first it was a little difficult, kind of just trying to figure it out. And I was, I had great teachers like Tyler Biotic my freshman year. So he was helping me, but kind of a lot of the stuff that he was helping me with was because he was, a little bit smaller of a guy, like stuff he's, kind of playing from behind a little bit. And it was kind of stuff I didn't, I could do without having to, play from behind. So eventually I realized that my length, my strength, my weight, my height, those were all stuff that was just going to help me to be a better player inside, even though some people say being long as a center is like a crutch, but I do not find that at all. I get to play with length. I get to keep people out of my chest, get to use my power.
Yeah. And obviously, the frame's the first thing that pops off film, but one thing that I really like about your game is I feel like you're very coordinated and you move to the second level really well. Like, I just think you're a good athlete overall. What are some of those things from that transition do you feel like came more natural to you? Like maybe playing to that length, like you said, is a big plus, but what were some of the early challenges to making that transition? What were some of the other things that maybe wasn't that big of a transition for you?
Or wait, okay. So sorry. Are you asking what was harder or
a little bit of both? So what came easier for you? And then what also was maybe a little bit of a challenge with that initial move?
I think just what came easy-ish was my run blocking, because I was able, at first I was worried about having that guy. So, that zero nose right there up and close. And then after a little bit, I was kind of just able to realize that, everything's maybe happening quicker, but that's just easier for me to get on this guy and get him moving. I'd say the thing that was definitely didn't come natural to me was snapping. I had to get that down. I snapped with every time the quarterbacks did like any skelly for about 6 months before I even got that down to perfect snaps every time. And I can't even say perfect, but in that box.
Love it, man. So I wanted to ask about this because before we started, I'd let you know, like I've talked to guys like Leo Chanel in the past, and I know you guys have had great run of some defensive players because I'm a big fan of Coach Leonard and just kind of what he has instilled on that defensive side of the football. So Leo and Jack, obviously this past year, I know Benton's a really good defensive tackle that you guys have now at the nose. And man, there's just so many great defensive players that have come through Wisconsin, even dating back to the TJ Watts of the world. But can you take me through maybe the challenges of playing against that defense every day and how that makes you a better football player.
Well, like you said, yeah, that certainly makes you a better football player. But having Keanu up there, up close as can be every single play, I think that was something because coming in I hadn't played much center, so that was something I had to learn how to do quick, and I had to figure out what and Keanu, he's awesome about it. He's always like, after practice we'll sit down, and I mean I'll share some stuff with him that I think he could do better. He'll share stuff with me that I can do better. So just being teammates with him in general is awesome because he's able to help me, I'm able to help him. But other than that, every day is a challenge. There's no days where the offense just runs all over the defense or passes the ball all over the defense. Every day it's a battle. Every day it's pretty much like a gruesome fight. And I think that is what helps us to have the explosive run game that we do.
Yeah.
So we hats off to the defense for that.
Yeah, and it's a perfect transition, Joe, because you guys have had historically great running games, obviously, too, with Jonathan Taylor. And, this past year, you Malusi and obviously Braylon Allen. Can I ask about Braylon Allen for a second, man? Because I just can't believe that this kid is only going to be 18 years old. Like, that kid is a freak of nature. I don't know where you guys found him, but wow, must be fun to block for a guy like that.
Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly. Braylon's an awesome guy. The first thing I always like to say about him is he's a humble dude because, 17 years old. I think he was one of the top rushing leaders in the Big Ten last year. So you'd expect him, to, maybe not be as humble, but he's a humble guy. He's awesome. Great worker, great work ethic. And at first when he was coming in, I was like, okay, this dude, he's reclassified. He's supposed to come in. I'm like, I don't know what he's doing. And then as soon as I saw him, I think it was the first summer. Yeah, for his first summer. So he was 17 years old at the time. I watched him power clean 405, and I was like, oh, this guy's legit. He's serious.
Yeah, that's a little different when you see that as a freshman. That's pretty crazy. So wanted to ask you, Joe, about, obviously, so you played left tackle in high school, you move inside the guard and ultimately into center. Are there some players that maybe you like to watch a ton? It could be NFL guys from the past, present, whatever it is. Are there some guys that maybe you like to film study a little bit?
Yeah, I've always liked watching Travis Frederick. He's got an easy connection to be able to get to his film. But a college guy that I used to like, that I enjoyed watching a lot last year, was I would watch Tyler Linderbaum because nice. They ran a little bit of a different style offense. Kind of, sometimes he'd be getting to the backers without even touching one of the down defensive linemen, which we were a little bit different. But what I liked about him was he always was playing fast. So, that was something. He was someone that I studied a lot last year, and I think I learned a lot from him.
Yeah, no, Linderbaum's a great one, man. And I kind of opened this, Joe, by saying, I think that you have a very good argument to potentially being the best center in football. In college football next year. And I know, again, Jared Patterson from Notre Dame's a really good player. I mentioned Ricky Stromberg from Arkansas. There's, the Van Pran kid from Georgia. There's a lot of really good centers, and a little bit of an atypical one. But does it mean anything to you about maybe being considered the best center in college football? Is that a goal that you have to be considered that guy in the nation?
I wouldn't say that's a goal that I have. I really try and keep away from all that sort of stuff, the rankings and all that and whatnot. But, I kind of strive just to be the best player that I can be. And I think with me, I think my ceiling is the sky. I think I still have a lot to learn. I think I still have a lot to progress. And I think, throughout this off season and through this coming season, I think I'll get there. And after that, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And I know that there's always high expectations when you play at Wisconsin. And I mentioned Coach Leonard and the consistency that you guys have had of the offensive line. And, you're coming off a 9-win season. So, I'm sure that you guys always had higher expectations than even that. But 9 wins, coming off a bowl game. What are some goals that you have as a team perspective now going into 2022? What would make it a successful year for you?
First thing is just winning the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever comes after that, whatever comes. But our first goal is just win the Big Ten.
I love it, man. I love it. And kind of my last question for you, Joe, is, again, I don't know if it's going to be 2023 NFL draft. I don't know if it's going to be 2024. Obviously, you have that junior eligibility with the COVID year, especially kind of put into there. But whether it is next year, the year after, whenever it does come, just how long has potentially playing in the NFL been a dream of yours? And how much of a blessing just would it be if that did become a reality for you?
I mean, even being considered as possibly being going into the NFL is a dream come true for me. I mean, as long as I can remember, throwing on when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, throwing on a whole Cowboys jersey, helmet, and all that stuff, running around with my friends. I mean, it's been a long-term goal for me and a long time coming. I'm, excited.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Again, joined by Joe Tippmann, offensive lineman out of Wisconsin, starting center over there. One of the best interior offensive linemen in entire nation, coming back for his now junior season next year. Joe, I appreciate this again, man. Taking a little bit of time again. I know it's busy, but thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah, appreciate you, Ryan.